January 26, 1945. A frozen forest clearing near the French village of Holtzwihr in the Alsace region, just west of the Rhine. 6 German tanks are rolling toward a single American company. Behind them, wave after wave of infantry, somewhere close to 250 men. In front of them, dug into the snow, is Company B of the 15th Infantry Regiment, exhausted, outnumbered, and about to be overrun. Their commanding officer orders them to fall back into the tree line. He stays behind. Alone, in the open, with the enemy closing from 3 directions, he climbs onto a burning tank destroyer that's minutes from exploding, and turns its machine gun on an entire German assault. For the next hour, he will hold that position by himself, wounded, out of support, refusing to move. He is 19 years old. His name is Audie Murphy, and in a few months, he will be the most decorated American soldier of the entire Second World War. To understand how a teenager ended up alone against 6 tanks, you have to understand what kind of childhood forged him. Audie Leon Murphy was born on June 20th, 1925, in Kingston, Texas, the 7th of 12 children in a family of sharecroppers. There was no comfort in that upbringing, only hard land and harder circumstances. His father drifted in and out of the family's life before eventually abandoning them altogether. His mother worked herself to exhaustion trying to hold the family together and died when Audie was still a teenager. By the time other kids his age were in school, Audie had already dropped out. 5th grade was as far as his formal education went. He picked cotton for $1 a day to help feed his brothers and sisters. To put meat on the table, he taught himself to hunt, and he got good at it fast. Rabbits, squirrels, anything he could bring down with a rifle became dinner. What started as necessity became a skill that would later save his life on the battlefields of Europe. Audie Murphy could shoot, and he rarely missed. When Pearl Harbor was attacked in December 1941, Murphy did what so many young American men did. He tried to enlist immediately, and he was rejected. Not once, but by multiple branches of the military. He was underage, and worse, he was small and underweight from years of poverty and hard labor. The Marines turned him away. The paratroopers turned him away. He didn't give up. His older sister helped him falsify documents to make himself appear old enough, and finally, the Army accepted him. He was still a teenager, still barely large enough to carry the standard combat gear, and about to be thrown into some of the most brutal fighting of the war. Nobody who saw that skinny farm kid arrive at training could have guessed what he was about to become. Murphy's first taste of combat came in July 1943 during the invasion of Sicily. He was assigned to the 3rd Infantry Division, a unit that would fight through some of the longest, bloodiest campaigns of the European War, and Murphy would be there for almost all of it. From Sicily, the fighting moved to mainland Italy, Salerno, the Volturno River, the brutal winter stalemate at the Rapido, and the assault on the Gustav Line. Weeks and months of grinding combat, disease, and exhaustion. This was not a short campaign with a clean beginning and end. It was attrition, and Murphy lived through nearly all of it, while many of the men who trained alongside him did not. It was during the fighting near Anzio that Murphy first showed the instincts that would define his entire war. When a German tank rumbled past his position, Murphy and his platoon opened fire and took out its crew. Then, on his own, Murphy crawled out into the open toward the now abandoned tank to make sure it was disabled for good, fully exposed with no cover, simply because it needed doing. That single act earned him the Bronze Star with a V device for valor. By now, a pattern was forming. Murphy wasn't reckless. Those who served with him would later describe him as quiet, almost withdrawn, someone who thought carefully before he acted. But once the shooting started, he moved toward danger instead of away from it, calmly, almost mechanically. It unsettled the men around him. It also kept them alive. Italy hardened him. He was promoted repeatedly, moving up through the ranks not through ambition, but through simple survival. Because so many of the men above him in rank were killed, and someone had to lead. By the time the 3rd Infantry Division was pulled out of Italy in the summer of 1944 to take part in the invasion of southern France, Audie Murphy was no longer the underweight teenager who'd been rejected by 3 branches of the military. He was a combat veteran, barely out of his teens, already carrying the weight of over a year of continuous warfare. In August 1944, Murphy landed near Ramatuelle on the coast of southern France as part of Operation Dragoon, the invasion that opened a second front in France, weeks after the more famous landings at Normandy. The fighting inland was fast and vicious. During one engagement, Murphy's platoon came under heavy fire from a house that German soldiers were using as a fortified position. Rather than wait for support, Murphy advanced on the house alone, under direct fire, and cleared it single-handedly. When it was over, 6 German soldiers were dead, 2 were wounded, and 11 more surrendered to a teenager who had walked into that fight by himself. That action earned him the Distinguished Service Cross, the second highest award the United States military can give for valor, just below the Medal of Honor. But the war was already taking things from him that no medal could give back. His closest friend in the unit, a soldier who had fought beside him since Sicily, was killed by a German sniper right in front of him. Murphy's response was not panic or retreat. Those who knew him said something in him went cold and focused. He hunted down the position the shot had come from and eliminated it. By the fall of 1944, Murphy had been wounded multiple times, had earned a battlefield promotion to second lieutenant, a remarkable rank for someone who had enlisted as an underage private with a 5th grade education, and had already accumulated more decorations than most soldiers earn in an entire career. Then came December, and the push toward the German border, and the fight that would define the rest of his life. By the winter of 1944 into 1945, the war in Europe had reached a strange, dangerous stalemate in one particular corner of France. The Germans had launched their last major offensive on the Western Front, the Battle of the Bulge, in December 1944. It failed, and German forces were pushed back. But northeast of that fighting, along the Rhine near the city of Colmar, German forces still held a stubborn pocket of territory nearly 40 miles long. The Allies called it the Colmar Pocket, and it was more than an inconvenience. If the Germans broke out of it, they could threaten the entire southern flank of the Allied advance into Germany, potentially unraveling months of hard-won progress. That pocket had to be cleared. The task fell, in part, to the U.S. 7th Army, and to the exhausted, battle-worn 3rd Infantry Division, including Company B, now commanded by 2nd Lieutenant Audie Murphy. By January, Murphy had actually been out of frontline action for 3 months, recovering from a gunshot wound to the hip, serious enough to have sidelined him. He didn't have to be back at the front at all. He returned anyway, taking command of Company B just as the fighting for the Colmar Pocket was intensifying. On January 23, 1945, the 3rd Infantry Division advanced through a forest near Holtzwihr and was suddenly hit by a powerful force of German tanks, tank destroyers, and infantry. The fighting was fierce, and casualties mounted fast. Murphy's company held their ground through brutal cold and constant German pressure. But on January 26th, the Germans came at them with everything they had. 6 German tanks emerged from the tree line, rolling directly toward Company B's position. Behind them came the infantry, roughly 250 men, advancing across open, snow-covered ground. Murphy's company was in no condition to meet that kind of force head-on. He gave the order to fall back to prepared positions in the woods behind them, a defensible line where they'd have at least some chance. His men obeyed. Murphy did not go with them. He stayed forward at his command post, alone, and got on the phone to the artillery, directing fire onto the advancing German infantry. Shell after shell tore into the enemy formation, and the effort worked. Murphy's directed fire killed a significant number of the advancing Germans before they ever reached his position. Then, just behind him and to his right, disaster struck. One of the American tank destroyers supporting his position took a direct hit and burst into flames. Its crew, badly outnumbered, and with their vehicle now a death trap that could explode at any moment, abandoned it and pulled back into the woods. Most men would have seen a burning, doomed vehicle and moved on. Murphy saw an opportunity. With German tanks now advancing almost level with his position and infantry closing in from 3 separate directions, Audie Murphy climbed up onto the burning tank destroyer, fully exposed, on top of a vehicle that could detonate at any second, and took hold of its .50 caliber machine gun. And then, he simply would not stop shooting. Alone, standing in the open on a burning vehicle, with German fire coming at him from 3 sides, Murphy turned that machine gun on the advancing infantry. The Medal of Honor citation would later describe what happened next, in stark, simple language. His fire killed dozens of German soldiers and caused their entire infantry assault to falter. Without infantry support advancing alongside them, the German tanks began to hesitate, then pull back. For over an hour, the Germans threw everything they had at that one position, trying to kill the single American soldier who had turned their assault into chaos. Murphy held his ground. At one point, he spotted a German squad attempting to creep up on his right flank, trying to outflank him while he was pinned down by the frontal assault. He turned the gun on them and wiped them out before they got close. Some German soldiers came within 10 yards of his position. They didn't make it any closer. Somewhere in that hour, Murphy was hit. A bullet wound to the leg. He kept firing. He didn't call for help, didn't stop to treat the wound, didn't so much as pause the rhythm of the gun. He simply kept shooting until finally his ammunition ran out. Only then did he climb down off the wreck and make his way, wounded, back toward his company. He refused medical attention. Instead, with the Germans still reeling from the assault he'd just single-handedly broken, Murphy organized his own company into a counterattack, the same men he'd ordered into the woods less than 2 hours earlier, and led them forward, driving the German force into retreat. By the time it was over, Murphy's stand and the counterattack he led had killed or wounded an estimated 50 enemy soldiers, on top of the losses his directed artillery fire had already inflicted. A single American company, 1 soldier, and a burning tank had stopped a German force of 6 tanks and roughly 250 infantry from breaking through. Later that spring, on June 2, 1945, Lieutenant General Alexander Patch placed the Medal of Honor around Audie Murphy's neck. He was 20 years old. By the time the war ended, Audie Murphy had earned somewhere around 33 separate medals and citations. Every single award the United States government offers for valor in combat, he had received: the Medal of Honor, the Distinguished Service Cross, 2 Silver Stars, 2 Bronze Stars, 3 Purple Hearts for wounds received in combat, along with the French Croix de Guerre, awarded to him twice, the Belgian Croix de Guerre, and France's Legion of Honor. He had enlisted as an underweight teenager that 3 branches of the military had initially turned away. He left the war as its most decorated American soldier, a rank achieved not through years of career service, but through roughly 2.5 years of nearly continuous frontline combat across Sicily, Italy, southern France, and into Germany itself. Historians and biographers estimate he personally killed or was directly responsible for the deaths of some 240 enemy soldiers over the course of the war. He came home to a hero's welcome almost impossible to picture today. An estimated 300,000 people turned out in Texas for his homecoming parade. Extraordinary recognition for a sharecropper's son who, just a few years earlier, had been picking cotton for $1 a day. Life magazine put his face on its cover. Hollywood came calling almost immediately, drawn to both his fame and, frankly, his looks. Over a 20-year acting career that followed, Murphy appeared in more than 40 films, many of them westerns, including, in 1955, To Hell and Back, where he played himself, reenacting the very battles that had earned him his medals. But the war didn't end for Audie Murphy just because the fighting had stopped. What we now call post-traumatic stress disorder had no widely recognized name in the years after World War II. But Murphy lived with nearly every symptom of it for the rest of his life. He suffered from insomnia and recurring nightmares. He slept with a loaded handgun under his pillow, a habit from the war he never fully let go of. He grew dependent on sleeping pills to manage the sleeplessness, and later spoke publicly and candidly about that struggle, one of the first prominent veterans of his era to do so, at a time when most men simply endured it in silence. He faced financial troubles in his later years despite his fame, and famously refused lucrative offers to appear in alcohol and cigarette advertisements, unwilling to set that kind of example for the young people who admired him. On May 28, 1971, Audie Murphy died in a plane crash in the mountains of Virginia, just weeks before his 46th birthday. He was laid to rest at Arlington National Cemetery in Section 46, near the tomb of the unknown soldier. At his family's request, his headstone is a simple government issue marker, not the gold leaf stone reserved for Medal of Honor recipients, because he never wanted to stand apart from the other soldiers buried around him. Today, his grave is the second most visited site at Arlington, after only President John F. Kennedy's. He was a sharecropper's son who was told he was too small, too young, too underweight to serve his country. He proved every one of those men wrong, not once, but across 2.5 years of nearly uninterrupted combat, on a scale that still seems almost impossible to believe. On a frozen field near Holtzwihr, alone on a burning tank destroyer, outnumbered more than 200 to 1, 19-year-old Audie Murphy simply refused to stop fighting until the threat was gone. That's the story of one man, 6 tanks, and the most decorated American soldier of the Second World War. That's Audie Murphy. If this story moved you, do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications, because there's another forgotten hero waiting for you next week on Battlefield Chronicles. And if you think someone else needs to hear this story too, share this video with them. These stories deserve to be remembered, and that only happens if we keep passing them on. Drop a comment and let me know who you want covered next. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.